For the travel and adventure photographers, the 6D Mark II is the perfect step into full-frame photography. In this video, I'm going to take you through some of the quick features of the 6D Mark II so you can get familiar with your new camera. Let's get started. Right in front of the power lever, you will see a mode dial. This dial allows us to change between automatic and manual modes. To turn this lever, we do need to depress in the center of the dial and then turn accordingly. This locking feature is very handy as it stops your camera from changing settings when you don't mean it to. Also notice on top a hot shoe. This is an accessory hot shoe suitable for speedlights and external microphones. A couple of other buttons you'll find across the top is AF. The AF button is for adjusting the autofocus mode. The next button is drive. Drive button will allow you to change between single, burst and self-timer drive modes. The ISO button allows us to adjust the sensitivity of the sensor. The metering button allows us to adjust our metering of the camera from center weighted to average to evaluative. The last button you'll see on top is the light bulb. This illuminates the top LCD screen for in the dark. On top also you'll notice the main shutter release button. This button provides two functions, half press for autofocus, full press to shoot. Just behind the shutter release button, you will also find an autofocus point selection button. We'll go into further detail on this soon. On the back of the 6D Mark II, you'll notice there are a few buttons. Let's take a closer look at this. The top left, you'll notice there is a menu button. This allows us to access the camera's internal functions and be able to make changes to things like time and date, picture size, and other values. The info button on the back allows us to cycle through information on the LCD screen. It also allows us to get to handy tools such as the electronic level. Like many EOS cameras, you'll notice that there is an optical viewfinder. The optical viewfinder is for you to be able to look directly through the lens. At the bottom of the screen, when looking through the lens, you will see some information. This information signifies such settings as shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and even has a light meter. To the top right of the viewfinder, you will also find a diopter. If you find that the picture does not seem sharp to you when looking through the viewfinder, you'll be able to adjust this to match your eyesight. Another button to reference on the rear of the camera is the start-stop button. Currently set in stills mode, the start-stop button will enable and disable our live view function. On the outside of the start-stop button, you will notice that there is an option here to change from stills to video. Whilst we are in the video mode, the start-stop button now becomes our start and stop recording function. So to record, we simply press start, and to stop, we press it one more time. To return to stills, we turn that toggle back to stills. Another button on the rear of this camera is playback. Playback allows us to reference the photos that we have already taken. We can cycle through these photos by rotating the wheel left or right, or using the advanced touchscreen functions and swiping left or right. Whilst also in playback, above that button you will notice a magnifying glass. This allows us to zoom in on the photo, and we can use our front rotational dial to zoom in closer or further away. Alternatively, we can also use the pinch zoom function with our fingers on the advanced touchscreen. Whilst also in playback mode, you'll notice at the bottom of the camera a trash can button. This allows us to delete photos that we no longer want. Please be aware that you need to confirm to erase the image by selecting Raise and hitting Set. Also on the back of the camera is a Q button. This Q button allows us to turn our touchscreen on and change settings. So for example, if I would like to change my white balance now, I can use this Q button to turn on the touchscreen. Select my white balance and then select a new value. We can either hit Set to lock it in or touch the touchscreen twice. Another important button here is the locking lever at the bottom. This locking lever, when in the locked position, will isolate the rear wheel. If we try to turn that rear wheel, we will see the message lock clearly come up on the rear screen. It's also worth mentioning this lock lever can be customized to lock other features on the camera. This large rotational wheel on the back is great for cycling through referencing photos in playback, but it also serves a purpose to change your aperture when you're in manual mode, simply by rotating to the right and to the left. Within the center of this dial, you'll also notice an up-down, left-right function on the toggle switch. This allows for fast navigation of the menus. The set button in the middle is like OK. It's a confirmation button, which allows you to adjust certain settings. Within easy thumb access, you'll notice three buttons across the top at the back. The first one is labeled AF on, and we'll go into a little bit more detail as to what this does in our next video. However, it is an alternative to the focusing on the front shutter button. AF on stands for autofocus on, also referred to as rear AF. At the top right on the rear, you'll notice two more buttons, a star and an autofocus adjust button. Firstly, the star locks our exposure. The last button on the rear to talk about is the autofocus point adjustment button. This button allows us to enter the menu system, where we're then able to cycle through our autofocus settings. Down the left-hand side of this camera, you'll notice some rubber ports. By lifting these ports, you'll notice that there are some accessories that can be plugged into this camera. At the top, we have a microphone input. Further down, we have a USB and mini HDMI output. Hiding at the front corner of the camera, you'll also notice a port to plug in a remote trigger. If you've ever wondered what these little 5 holes are drilled at the top here on the left, this is a reference speaker when playing back video. Being a video-enabled EOS camera, you'll also notice on the front 2 small holes for a left and right stereo microphone. One last button is hidden down beside the right hand grip at the bottom base of the lens. This button down here's purpose is to serve as a depth of field preview button. It can also be customized to do other functions. You may also notice on the left-hand side a little logo. This stands for NFC, which also signifies that this camera has wireless features. We have another video available to assist you in connecting your camera to your smart device wirelessly. The 6D Mark II has a battery compartment in the bottom. To get the battery in and out of this model, you simply turn it upside down, put your finger in the release lever. You'll notice a little white lever inside the battery compartment which will release your battery. To put the battery back in, you identify the arrow marking the direction of entry. Push the battery in until you hear it click, closing the rear door, and you're ready to shoot. This model uses an SD memory card. You will find the memory card slot under your right hand. To open the memory card slot, simply push back on the slot, the door will spring open. To remove the memory card, push on the SD card and it will release. To put it back in, simply place the SD card in and push until you hear a click, and then close the door, ready to shoot. Like all Canon EOS cameras, the lenses are interchangeable. To remove the lens on this model, use your thumb to release the lens locking lever, turn in an anti-clockwise direction, and the lens will release from the camera. Please reference that the 6D Mark II only accepts EF lenses, which are signified by a red dot, both on the lens and on the body. We align these 2 dots and put the lens on in a clockwise direction until we hear a click, and our lens is now secure. Another great feature on this model is the rear flip screen. This allows us to be able to turn the screen upon itself or be able to angle it up or down for the best view possible. It can also be packed away with the screen facing inwards to avoid scratches in transit. I hope this video has helped to get to know the 6D Mark II a little better. Please watch our next video where we're going to go through some of the advanced settings on the 6D Mark II in more detail.